Analyze a video for logical fallacies, they said. It'll be easy, they said. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. It took all I had. Every waking moment. And this is why I haven't even had a chance to comb my hair. Every single live video I've done. Hair. Oh. Okay. I must make a deal with myself. Yes, in the future, I will comb my hair. Who are you? I'm you. From the past. Me? From the past, you say? Impossible. I would have remembered doing that. No, that's not how time travel works. Look, if I go to the future, obviously it's not the future that I'm going to experience because the knowledge of the future affects the past, which is my present. That means the future that I go to will never be my future. Therefore, your past cannot be my present or your future. Got it? What? Oh, look, if that doesn't make sense, then neither will this video. I said, neither will this video. Go to the video already. Oh, right. The video. The video.
The reason atheism makes no sense is because if you adopt the type of atheism which is based on philosophical naturalism, which is the idea that everything is a result of physical processes, it's all physical and everything can be accounted for via physical means, then you run into a lot of problems. And the first problem is, if you go right down to the foundations, what we're saying here is that everything has happened by accident.
Good old appeal to consequence, because it can't possibly be just chance, although it's not technically just chance, but we've got to have that straw man construct that it's just chance thrown in there as well. Here's the thing though, there was 2 million sperm competing for one egg. So the chances of you being born was 1,999,999 to 1. Yet, here you are. The odds were against it, but here you are. So chance can, under the right conditions at least, produce a result. And if you rewind any event, the odds against it are insane. But why object to chance bringing about things? Why is that unsettling? If that is the answer, and it's not exactly the answer, by the way, but if that's the truth, then that's what the truth is, regardless of if we like it or not, accept it or not, believe it or not. Whatever the actual fact is still the fact.
Things, physical atoms and molecules bumping and colliding into each other over millions and trillions of years, God knows how long.
About 13 billion years, give or take, I would say. That's about how long it took.
This is absolutely crazy. It's madness. All of the order, all of the balance, everything we see within the universe, including ourselves as human beings, all of this is a result of an accident. Makes no sense from a rational, intuitive, common sense perspective. It just doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form.
This is personal incredulity. The statement that it's too crazy, it's too insane, it's too whatever to accept this. I can't believe that. It's too improbable, too impossible. I can't understand how it could ever be that. You can't explain this. It can't just be chance. It's nothing more than personal incredulity. If that's the way it really is, which it might be, I don't think it is just chance. There's filtering mechanisms in place like Well, with the universe, there's gravity at the very least, and then with biological life, there's all sorts of filtering mechanisms in place. But even if at the core the mechanism is chance, so what? If that's what really turns out to be true, just throwing your hands up in the air and going, but it's just not possible, doesn't change the facts of the matter, whatever the facts of the matter might be. So your appeal to personal incredulity doesn't help your argument, and it isn't an issue that atheists have, because we're not saying that it's all chance. I don't think that we're saying necessarily anything at all about how the universe came to be, but that, again, is a apologetic tactic to try to make the atheist argument for them, which would also include the straw man again.
But to develop this, I go to the second point, which is, let's take our rational faculties as human beings. Atheists, theists alike, we all acknowledge that we have rational faculties, truth-bearing faculties. Faculties, when we engage them and we use them, they can lead us to truth. Otherwise, if we don't believe this, we shouldn't really hold any position because we can't even be sure of what we believe, right? However, on atheism, the type of philosophical naturalism, you cannot account for your rational faculties, your truth-bearing faculties.
Well, that's not true. We know that brains are a thing, and brains are what allow us to have thoughts. So there you go. There's the explanation right there. It's a brain. Alright, we know it, which makes what you said just not true at all.
Why? Well, there is no direct correlation between survival, from an evolutionary perspective, and truth.
Hey, don't let that red herring get away! Quick, after it! That's not really true either, because yes, as time goes on, our ability to, comprehend the world would advance along with us. See, animals can recognize other animals and shapes, and we are an animal. So we came from them. They already had these things built in to some extent, and we just kept adding on to that until we get to this point. So yes, your cognitive facilities and your sensory perceptions can detect the truth well enough to survive. Now, does that mean that they're perfect? No, our senses aren't perfect. But if God made them, then that would make it God's fault. If nature's responsible, then it would make sense that our senses aren't perfect, which is why we have to turn to science and logic to help us make sense of the world.
But the interesting thing is that if you adopt the type of atheism I'm talking about, you have no moral grounding. You have no moral anchor. You are in no position to challenge or make or pass moral judgments.
Well, that's a very interesting, unargued for premise that you have there. Being a formal fallacy, of course, you haven't given us any reason to accept your foundation for being able to say that atheists don't have a foundation. And by doing this, you've incurred a number of logical fallacies: switching burden of proof, poisoning the well, and of course special knowledge, because you'd have to know what we know, which is whether or not we have a foundation for our morals, and you can't know that, you didn't ask. By the way, you've also incurred a fractal error, because what you said is just not true. There's plenty of ethical systems available to choose from beside DCT, Divine Command Theory, which I would assume would be your ethical system because you're going by God or Allah's word or whatever, and that's DCT. And of course, if you're dealing with DCT, then you have the U3O dilemma. I don't know that that's the way to say it, but that's what YouTube said to say. I looked it up, and that was the thing. Anyways, you have to deal with his dilemma. So good luck with that, because no theist has done that. But you haven't supported your burden, so there's no reason for us to think that what you said is true.
Why? Because, again, You know, if it's all down to evolution, if we like think of it from that perspective, then everything is evolving, and our morals have too evolved. And it's not about truth or good or bad, but what's beneficial for survival.
Not only is it because of evolution that we've evolved these morals and ethics as well, but that's a good thing, because the ones that we have today are more complex than the ones we did in the past. And we can know if it's true based upon whether or not it enables a person to survive, and it enables the species as a whole to survive. We can look at past performances of societies and gauge how they succeeded or failed, and use those ideas in our current day and age. We can see that a society that oppresses freedom, for example, doesn't survive as long as a society that allows for freedom. Societies that harm individuals, like chopping off heads or maybe even chopping off hands, do not survive as long as societies that do not practice such things. Societies that allow for religious freedom survive longer than societies that oppress religious freedom. So if you have a society that says, for example, if you steal something, we're going to chop off your hand, that society is not going to survive as long as a society that doesn't say that. It has some other consequence, perhaps, for stealing food, maybe even a system in place to make sure that no one has to steal food in the first place. So we can determine all of that thanks to the evolution of the complex nature of ethics and morals, and not because these things have been ground into stone, forever unchanging and never adaptable to current things. God is completely silent on modern issues like radiation or how to deal with technology in whole or in part. Is it a good idea to put a microchip in my brain to let me have better memory? God's completely silent on that issue. What about using gene therapy to make sure that our future children don't suffer from diseases or illnesses that harm us now? God is silent on that issue as well. And that's either because God didn't know about these things, or maybe it's because the people just made up things according to what they knew at the time and pretended that it was from God. But in either case, we're still going to have to develop ethics and morals without God telling us which way to go on them. So why rely upon an unchanging system when we're still going to have to eventually change the system anyways? Perhaps it's better to deal in truth and reality than to rely on ancient writings that will not and cannot be updated, because that's the very nature of religion. It's an appeal to tradition. It is not an appeal to what the modern day individual or society will need. Well, that's all I've got, past self. I've cleared up all the logical fallacies. Look forward to your new future.
Well, at least I can look forward to a future free from logical fallacies. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to look up something on YouTube. Oh no. Oh no. 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 Those crazy bastards! They have destroyed it all! Planet of the Apes reference. The Humanity Hindenburg reference. Logical fallacies. Lobster.